Nigel Farage has to say now. We're expecting him to respond to those comments from Keir Starmer, calling Reform UK the dangerous party and also a right-wing party. Nigel Farage has made it clear in advance of this event he's going to respond to those comments, and perhaps even he'll take a swing, pun intended,
Thank you.
at Mike Ainsley.
Good evening, Cornwall. I've just returned from the United States of America, where something quite remarkable is happening. They had an election on November the 5th, and they've got a new president. Chap who's a friend of mine, Donald J. Trump, is now their president. And he's decided, and he's acting already, they're going to get rid of waste and fraud within government, with Elon Musk leading the charge. What a good idea. He has decided that 6'3" people who were born male, who have lunchboxes that will make Linford Christie jealous, will no longer be competing in female sports. He has decided that nobody that enters America illegally will be allowed to do so, and the deportation flights have started already. And his deputy, his Vice President, J.D. Vance, came and shocked European leaders a couple of weeks ago. In fact, the reaction to his speech reminded me a bit of my old days in the European Parliament, where what I said never went down very well. He said that free speech was under threat in Europe. And just today we learned that Channel 8 in France, a centre-right leaning mainstream TV channel, is to have its licence withdrawn. Vance was right. But that attack on free speech also happened tonight here in Camborne. What you saw outside this hall this evening was an organisation called Antifa. They are hard left communist political actors who were intent on shutting us down, intent on this exercise in democracy that is happening here in Cornwall tonight. They were intent on shutting it down. Well, let me give a message to Antifa. Let me give a message to two-tier Keir Starmer. Let me give a message to all of them. We will not be cowed. We will not be silenced by anybody. We are the British people, and we want a common sense government back in charge of our country. We're going to fight for it, and we are going to win. We're going to win. We are going to win. Political protest is fine. I don't mind people shouting things out at me. I can just about live with the odd egg, that's all right. But masked people outside tonight, threatening and intimidating you, Cornish members of the public, is not good enough, and all the warnings were there online before. Everyone knew what was going to happen, except it would appear the local police. And I will be writing to the acting chief constable to say, stop looking at what people say online and allow democracy to flourish in Devon, Cornwall and the whole of the West Country. Now, since the last election, it would appear we're doing really rather well. Which means that the Prime Minister has decided he will open up the attack guns on reform, or perhaps more accurately, on me. He delivered a speech in Scotland just yesterday, saying that we were right-wing. Perish the thought. Didn't call us far right, which rather surprised me, but that will come in time. He said that his way was the way for people to have good, well-paid jobs. Well, it was the Conservatives that started it, but Labour that have continued. But the net zero madness is closing down factories, is closing down industry on a scale we couldn't have even believed. Today, it's the mini plant at Cowley that employs 3,500 people. Before that, it was 1,100 jobs going at Luton. And the reason is simple. The Labour and Conservative governments have said, you must buy electric cars. Do you want to buy electric cars? Thank you. There we are. Are you watching, Prime Minister? We have closed most of our chemical industry. We have closed all of our aluminium smelting. We only have one primary steel plant left in the whole of the United Kingdom. And even if we surround, as they plan, the whole of Cornwall with these godforsaken, pig-ugly windmills, it will still only provide a fraction of the jobs. Starmer will close down the North Sea. Miliband will make sure your bills go higher. And the greatest lie Labour told at the election is that your electricity prices would fall by £300 per household. Remember that? We'll find out tomorrow what the increases will be. So I will not be lectured by this Prime Minister about well-paid jobs. And I won't be lectured by either of them about the benefits of mass immigration to our economy. When I say mass immigration, I mean 10 million people in the last 20 years. And the media will say, but Nigel, they're coming in to do jobs. Do you know of the last 3 million that came into Britain from outside of Europe during the Conservatives' period in office, only 22% are working. The rest have come in as dependents, and it's making everybody in this country poorer, and nobody has the courage to stand up and say it. But a reform government will stop this massive population increase in this country, will get British people back to work, and anybody that arrives via a dinghy on the English Channel will never, ever, ever be allowed to stay in our country. And we will do it by facing up to the truth. I mean, can you believe that one person couldn't be deported because his kid liked chicken nuggets? We will leave the European Convention on Human Rights and restore the sovereignty of this country. And meanwhile, Brexit voting Cornwall has been betrayed not just by a Conservative government in 2019 that never believed in it, but used it for political opportunity, but now Starmer, who is crawling back towards the European Union, signing us up to EU food standards, to be overseen by the European Court of Justice, on the verge of signing us up once again to the free movement of people of anybody under 30. I gave up the best years of my adult life to campaign for this country to leave the European Union and to get back its sovereignty. And all those years that I led UKIP, everybody told me I was wasting my time. I was whistling in the wind. Well, they used a rather ruder term than that, but never mind. But you know what? Through the hard work and persistence of that grassroots movement, we didn't just force a referendum, we won an historic constitutional referendum, the biggest fundamental change to our country in 300 years. And I was proud to stand in Parliament Square on the 31st of January 2020 and to do the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1. Fireworks. We're out. We're independent. We have got our country back. I was proud of that. And yet, has it been delivered? Has it held? Have Cornish fishermen felt the benefit of us leaving the European Union? There are more French, Dutch and Belgian boats fishing up on our 6-mile line than there ever were as members of the European Union. Our fishing fleets are put under by the MMO and the MCA, levels of regulation never seen before. And I say this as I have a family member involved in the fishing industry in your great county. Are our farmers better off? Outside the European Union? No, with Labour's relentless and now merciless attack on all of those that live in our rural communities. We have been let down. We have been betrayed on Brexit, but it's even worse than that. The truth of it is that our country is in deeper trouble than anybody in public life even cares to admit. We are in economic decline as the average folk get poorer. We are in societal decline as violence, knife carrying, shoplifting. You can go nick 200 quid and not get prosecuted. We're going down the tubes. This is even worse than it was back in the mid-1970s. And if this is not arrested, if this is not turned around, this within a decade will be a country that is not worth living in. And I think, as I'm sure many of you do, about those that went before us, those that built this incredible nation, that did the most remarkable things. Those that went before us, look at every village in Cornwall with its war memorial. Think about those that paid a massive price so that we could live as free people. I fear and I feel, as I guess many of you do, all of this is being given away. And that is why, despite over a quarter of a century campaigning for a cause that I was told I could never win, but did, and then enjoying a few years of semi-retirement, not having to work 7 days a week, not being pilloried by the press, enjoying myself enormously on GB News. But I thought last summer, I just cannot stand by and watch this useless, gutless, inexperienced political class surrender everything. Think about it. We've now got a cabinet of 25 men and women, not one of whom has ever worked in private business. Not one. We have a chancellor. Dubbed by our comic, our northern professional comic, who's given it up to become an MP, Lee Anderson, who dubbed her Rachel from accounts, who tells us she spent 10 years as an economist at the Bank of England. Now we know it was 4.5 in customer complaints. Is it any wonder we're in such trouble? And a business secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, who's never had a proper job in his life, who tells us He's a solicitor when he's never been qualified, which is a criminal offence. And I can tell you tonight that there will be a private prosecution brought against Jonathan Reynolds. On the big international picture, Keir Starmer is off to the White House on Thursday. Much will be discussed, including the wholly unnecessary surrender of the Chagos Islands. We own them, yet we're prepared to pay £52 billion over the next 99 years to give it away. I hope Trump tells Starmer, Lord Hermer, and this bunch of human rights lawyers who seem to hate our country where to go. On Ukraine, it's the third anniversary of an horrendous war. 1 million battle casualties. Men living in trenches, behind barbed wire. It's almost hard to believe 106 years on, but it's just like the Western Front. At least Trump is attempting to negotiate peace, and I welcome and applaud that and believe that, as a principle, is the right thing to do. But what is important is that Ukraine must have the necessary security guarantees, and Starmer needs to make that plain to America. We may have slightly different nuances on this, but the important thing about settling the Ukraine war, about getting peace, is we have to make sure those security guarantees mean that Putin can never, ever do it again. And I hope Starmer comes back from the White House with that agreement. But whilst we are, on the one hand, the most realistic about the mess this country's in, and frankly, about the pathetic leadership that is given by a Labour Party, I mean, they're also bloody miserable, aren't they? And a Conservative Party that has completely and utterly lost its way, with a leader who appears to be lazy, with a leader who comes up with bizarre conspiracy theories about our membership, our live ticker. Have you seen the live ticker? I'm obsessed with it. Today we've gone through 214,000 paid up members. Now, the Tories are a waste of space. Kem is hopeless. They're going to fall off a cliff electorally. Indeed, it's happening already. And we now, in the last few weeks, we are now topping every single opinion poll in this country. What an amazing achievement. But we have to convert theory into reality. I am here in Cornwall tonight to deliver to you this message. At the last general election, across the 6 now parliamentary constituencies, all of which were Conservative, 4 of which are now Labour, 2 of which are now Liberal Democrat. We scored 16.6% of the vote on the 5th of July last year. An average of the latest polls in Cornwall puts us over 25% and says that if there was a general election tomorrow, Reform would win St Austell and Newquay and Cornwall South East. How about that? But the first step to Reform taking Cornwall happens on the 1st of May this year. That is when we get the Cornwall Council elections. 87 seats up for grabs. Looking at the polling and the numbers, most of those seats will be 3 or even 4-way marginals. If we can just get 30% of the vote in those seats, we're going to start to win seats in Cornwall in a significant number. And boy, doesn't Cornwall Council need something different, given they're now in debt to the tune of 1.3 billion. Can you believe that? Can you believe? How on earth, in a county the size of Cornwall, can you have run up a debt of 1.3 billion? Money, by the way, that you, through your council taxes, increasing over the next few years, will be expected to pay back. So we need some voices of common sense on Cornwall Council. We need lots of voices of common sense on Cornwall Council, don't we? But what do we need to do? We need to learn a lesson from the Liberal Democrats. No, we're not going to shoot any dogs or anything like that, don't worry. But the Liberal Democrats work at grassroots politics. We need people not just to join us as you've all done, and thank you. We need people not just to come to Cambrai this evening, braving the vile yobs outside as you've done.